We're in the prayer room right now. It's afternoon session, 1 to 1:45. Presentation is called, that's pretty big, Messner.
Sorry.
Modernizing your business with Power Platforms. Jason and I have done a fair amount of work together. It's very practical, right? The thing that impresses me about the Power App platform is it takes what used to be a $150,000, $200,000, $250,000 traditional dev project, and it now becomes $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 with the Teams UI with Power Apps. Jason is our principal engineer, very good at it. I'm supposed to read the official, right, Jason?
Oh, you can if you want.
Principal developer at NCI, focusing on the Microsoft stack, leveraging it to create solutions and customer business needs. Jason has over 19 years of experience working at Microsoft in information technology and a senior developer for multiple ERP solutions, right? I know it's tell stuff, right? Jason and I go way back. We've done this in a handful of customers today where we have evaluated ROI and we've seen manual process, truth in data, Excel spreadsheets, Microsoft workflows, Word workflows. Nobody has truth in data in the end, which the three solutions that we've put in place has solved, and our customers say this changed the way we function, right, and drives value for us. So sales guy always says efficiency and value. This is real. This really happened. We've done it. Jason will walk us through it. Jason, take it away.
Sounds good. Thank you. Appreciate it. No, you're all good. All right, sounds good. Well, first, I'd just like to thank everybody for, of course, showing up in person and online. My name is Jason Messner, a principal developer at NCI. And so today, basically, my job is I want to kind of just walk you guys through more or less the modern workplace. I don't know if any of you guys sat through David's presentation this morning where he kind of touched on some of those things. I want to go ahead and take a deep dive and talk about that and then go more into the actual Power Platform, give you guys some examples of what it is, and at the end, demo. So starting at that high level of just trying to understand kind of how we can modernize your business using Microsoft tools is basically what is here. And so during my presentation, we'll start off with like the 10,000 foot view, and then we'll try and drill down into a lot more detail and show you some examples at the end. So let's get started. And to me, this is what Microsoft's modern workplace is. And if all you guys see today, we got Office 365 in the middle. So, I mean, it's your Word, your Excel, everything from Outlook. So, I mean, if you're already using Office 365 and already have a subscription today, you could already have access to a lot of the things shown in the slide already, and they might be already included for you to use for free with those licensing you already have. So as you can see, Microsoft has bought some technology, Microsoft's created some technology. There's a huge amount of stuff that you get with that Office 365. So that's kind of the first thing I just want to bring up to you guys. And then the next part is, since most people have Office 365. What can we get? What tools are available? What's out there today? How can I use them to more or less modernize my business? So we'll switch over to, I want to ask you guys to start thinking about your businesses because, of course, you guys know them way better than I do. But I'm just going to throw up some hypothetical things. Like, for instance, if you're looking for a new way to solve a problem that's came up, I mean, ever since COVID, everything from product shortages to having problems trying to keep your employees or hiring a new employee. There's lots of definitely challenges are out there. So my goal today would be to say, hey, at least take a look at the Power Platform, see what it can do for you. And, maybe it's a fit, maybe it's not. But so when you start looking at anything you have in your business today that is kind of a pain point or a problem that's arisen, we want to start thinking of what those are. So right now, when I go through the rest of these, just start thinking about your business and how you guys actually do business. So one of the other things, like when I talk to most of our customers today is, do we have any processes that are actually being performed manual? And I'm actually really surprised in almost 2023, how many people we actually talk to, they're like, yeah, well, this is manual still, So when you think of your businesses, like if I came to your business, is the first thing I get to do is fill out a form with all my information on pen and paper, or, even if it's not that, if it's a service, like I'm bringing in my car to get an oil change and your guys in the back are manually filling out all that information and you're not storing it in a database anywhere. So as I return as a customer, if we store it in a database and not doing that manual process, now I would have your information. And not only would I have your information, then I could send you stuff like emails about anytime we'd have sales or any type of things like that. So like I said, even like Gorder was saying, a lot of our ones all started out small by doing these automations for them and then grew into actually doing a whole custom application just off of one thing. Like I'm using an Excel spreadsheet manually to record this information. And we went from that to building an inventory system for them and everything else. So like I said, just keep thinking of these as we go through. The other thing is, as in your business, do you guys actually have the data that you need to make data-driven decisions? This is another thing too. Your data could be in Excel, it could be in an email, it could be in your CRM, it could be in your ERP. It's spread out all over the place. And one of the biggest things that I see when I talk to customers is we don't have any connection with that data, or it's hard to get that data. So if you have any of these type of things, this is where things like Power BI, which is part of the platform, we can use that to go ahead and get that data and actually bring that data back in and get it from multiple places, and then actually do the ETL, the extract, transform and load that data, and then use that data to actually make these type of decisions. So the other one is gaps in software today. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to show that first one is I want to show you guys all the tools that we have, because most people I talk to today too says that there's always gaps in their system. It could be a gap between your ERP and your CRM, or it just might be things like approvals. I know that's one of the ones we end up doing the most, because it's like, well, my ERP, we have to do purchase orders and I don't have an approval process. Well, Power Platform's perfect for that, because not only can we use things like Power Automate to do all that stuff, we can do complex ones where, like if you have a purchase order and the purchase order is $5,000, it only has to be approved by 2 managers. But if it's $15,000, I want 3 managers to approve it. And so we can actually create that automation in the cloud using Power Automate and automate that whole approval process. So, and then one of the last thing is when it comes down to employee productivity, are there any things that are doing today? It's another thing when I talk to a lot of the customers today, it's like, well, my AP person, they have to go out to our ERP and I have to print off these 5 documents, and then I have to go take that data and enter it into, our other system over here, and there's no integration between those. So if there's any of those type of things, once again, anything from doing Power Automate, which is the automation process, or actually doing a full-blown Power App, which is a custom developed app to bridge those gaps, is something we can definitely do. So next. This is the other common question I get is, why should you guys use the Power Platform? So the first thing is it's been around for a while and it's definitely not going anywhere. It is Microsoft's Power Platform is a leader in low code platform, and basically we have 11 million active users, and that number is growing in double digits over year today. So Microsoft is definitely investing money into this Power Platform, and they're adding new features at all the times. We actually have some in public preview right now that we can talk about, and then we have some that are out there now that like the portal, which I'll cover later. So the other thing is, with the Power Platform, you're actually getting a suite of tools, and there's actually 8 different tools that I'll go over here in just a minute. But that entire suite of tools is what actually gives you your ability to streamline your business and to more or less do more with less. So with those automated processes, or if we create you a custom app that bridges those gaps that you have in your system today, it's just going to save you time, money. We're going to have the data stored in our true database where we can make data-driven decisions off of that. So if we use all the tools in there, these are some of the things we can actually do. We can actually quickly build an actual professional grade app we can create those workflow automations, which if you have a manual business workflow today, the first thing would be is we'd walk through that, what all those steps are, and then we'd use Power Automate to create automation steps for each one of those. We can take those data sources that you have, let it be Excel or let it be your CRM or your accounting package, take that data, combine it, and put it into one place, and then use that to actually create customized reports off that to get you the data that you need. So, and then the last thing is we can actually even embed anything like Power BI into any of those custom solutions that we do, or we can actually just share them out if you guys have full-blown Power BI in the cloud as well, and you can share those out with existing internal customers or external customers as well. So, and then the last thing I just want to touch on is when we talk to our customers today, we have some super small customers and we have some pretty big customers. So the Power Platform is really a good fit for no matter what your business size is. And you know, we usually start with maybe a Power Automate script or even doing a small part of an app in a phase. And then it's amazing to see how if we can show and prove the Power Platform is there and what value you guys actually get out of it is pretty easy to keep adding on to the additional things we can do. So now I'd like to just go into and start talking about, this is just more or less to go through what actually is the Power Platform. So according to Microsoft, it's their low-code solutions that span Office 365, Azure, Dynamics 365, and standalone applications. The cool thing I like off this slide is innovation anywhere, and it unlocks value everywhere. So, and if we look at this, if you look at the 4 colored circles across the top, these are basically the 4 pillars that make up Power Platform. And so I'm just going to take some time today and we'll go through each one of the ones on top. And then the 4 on the bottom are our integration tools that actually work with any one of the 4 on top. So we'll kind of go into a deep dive, spend a little time going through each one of these. But if we just walk through across the top, we have Power BI, which has been around a long time, and I'm pretty sure most people in the room at least know what that is. The Power Apps is our custom dev solution where we'd actually build an app that is actually in the cloud. It can be used on your phone and it can be used on iOS, Android, and it's all hosted by Microsoft. So, and then we have Power Automate, which is that automation tool, and I'll demo some of that later in my presentation. And then we have some other stuff that you may not have seen, like Power Virtual Agents. So let's go ahead and just take a quick deep dive into each one of these. So like I said, Power BI has kind of been around the longest. And to me, if you ask me to kind of sum up what Power BI is the ability to take that data that's stored in multiple places, like for instance, your Excel, your CRM, even standalone application, and you can take that data and you can actually pull it back. And one of the cool things, if you're not using Power BI today, you can actually go to Microsoft and download the Power BI desktop. It's for free. And then what they have is they have data connectors in there that allow you to connect up to whatever your data source is. So there's a data connector for Excel. There's a data connector for things like Salesforce.com, any of those other products. And there's 365 of those connectors. And so that allows us to go ahead and get that data and then to bring it into, like if you're anybody that works with reports, we always want to do the ETL, which is we want to extract the data from the multiple sources that it's actually in. We want to transfer the data so it's only giving us the data that we truly need to make our decisions. And then we want to load it back up into something. So if you went and used the free Power BI desktop, which you just download, we'd actually take your data and just put it in a PBIX file and store it locally. And then that way, once we have the data in here, then we can start creating reports. And then off of the reports, the key of this is doing the visualizations. And that's what we're kind of showcasing here is the visualizations are where you can create, I believe there's like 35 out of the box and there's like 256 additional ones. Some you have to pay for, some you don't, that have been created by other developers, other MSPs. So, but this gives us a way, so once we get that data from all those multiple places and we bring it back into that PBIX file, now I can start slicing and dicing that same data. So I can start looking at things like my ticket volume per customer. I can see if I'm actually meeting SLA, and then we can filter the data too. So I could look at just one technician, I could look at an entire team, and that's the beautiful of getting these visualizations is you can change those filters, and then it'll easily take our data and get us in some place where you can actually make fast business decisions off of. So to me, that's what Power BI is. So we'll move on to the second pillar, which is Power Automate. Power Automate is in the cloud. And so this example here is one of the first things I did internally. And this is where I'm talking about, you guys think, when you're thinking, think of the smallest things. Because this, for instance, we used to have a person that actually would go out on every Monday morning. Their first job was they'd go out to the Excel spreadsheet hosted in SharePoint. And they'd say, okay, who's on call this week? And are they actually here? And then take their names and actually put them in an email and then send that out to the entire company. So for us to automate that, it only took like maybe 15, 20 minutes, because within this, we can have it actually be scheduled because it's in the cloud. So this one actually fires every Monday morning. It goes out to that Excel spreadsheet that's shared out on SharePoint. And we just set a few variables like what's today's date, because we know that, go get me what Monday is. And then loop through that list, find in the list where that date is, and then more or less, once I find that date, go get the two users' names right next to primary and secondary, capture that back up, and if my condition comes back as true, then I go ahead and send the email. So once again, with all those data connectors and all the stuff that you get in the Power Platform, it's pretty easy to write stuff like this, to script all this stuff today. So now nobody has to waste 10, 15 minutes of their day going to do this every Monday. So it's a great way to get in to using the Power Platform. And usually once you start doing automations like this, then it leads to things like, well, now I want to maybe go and look at a custom app. And this can actually be used along with a custom app as well to do a lot of those background things in the cloud out of the way. Like, for instance, you can have it set up so like if a user enters in a record, and I don't care if it's in SharePoint or if it's in a shared Excel file or if it's actually in your SQL database, then we can have actually an action that fires when that happens. So like, for instance, if somebody enters in a new request, we go fire off an email to that person saying, hey, we received your request, thanks for sending it to it. So starting out really basic, but we can do some super complex stuff, and when I demo later, I'll go through some of that. So the third one is Power Apps. And so Power Apps, once again, it's all cloud-based. And like I said, Microsoft is basically went through and done all the connectors, and they give us the ability to interact with all the Office 365 stuff. And that's what I'm going to demo later, is kind of how all that integration works and how we just get it for free. And then it's low code. So when I have to go code that, I don't have to write a line of code. I just have to call a function that Microsoft's already written for me. And that's where we get the savings that Brad was talking about earlier, that we can really save you some money by still creating your custom application. So the cool thing with this is, it's called the Canvas app because it actually starts literally as a white screen. So we can design as fancy or as plain as you guys want. Like I said, it has all the connectors that we'll go through here in a little bit. I'll show you what all the connectors are to connect up to all of our database sources. But it's hosted in the cloud. And the cool thing is that once I create a Power App, I don't have to do anything as a developer, which I don't have to charge you guys for anything, is because all I have to do is click a button and it's going to go ahead and build this. And I can have it actually build it so it would work on your iOS devices, your Android devices, and your Windows devices. So we're talking everything from your iPads to your iPhones to Androids, and it builds on all the platforms, and then it's stored in one location. And so you can access it multiple ways too. There's a Power Apps platform that you can install. We can embed the Power App into Teams if you're heavy Teams users. Or, once again, it's literally just a web address. So you can hit it from anywhere you have connectivity, and then, of course, it's going to prompt you for creds and all the security things to get in and actually use it. So, and then the last one, and I don't know if anybody in here has seen this one or not, but this is where Microsoft has spent a lot of money. I mean, of course, they do ERPs, they do CRM, and they're heavily into artificial intelligence and everything else. So this is the way of they're taking all the time that they've invested into all their products they're selling, like their ERPs, and bringing it down into the Power Platform. So Power Virtual Agents is basically a way where you can actually create a chatbot. And with the chatbot today, there's more or less two different ways. If you want to use it within Teams, you can actually use it for free. And they cut off a few of the more robust parts of it, but it's still definitely useful at a Teams level, and it's a great way to try it out at more or less no cost to you guys. Because like I said, with Office 365, you get a lot of this stuff included already. So, but what it does is it allows you to more or less create a bot, and it's really not that tough. If you look here, we have topics and entities. So we basically create a topic, and in this example I have up here, it's more or less the user is in real language is saying, hey, do you have a store in Kirkland? And then the bot, we've programmed it to say, yeah, we have a store in Kirkland, here's the address. And so it's actually gonna spit the address of what that store is. And if the bot can't answer it, then we can have it relay to actually a real person. So as far as use cases for this, we've done a bunch of stuff like internally, like for instance, if I wanted to do HR, because that's pretty easy. It's like a lot of people have all these questions is like, when's my next paid day off? Well, the bot could spit back, well, Veterans Day is your next paid day off if that's what you get. Or you could ask it things like, once we're using Office 365, we already have things like, if I asked it, who's my manager, or what's my manager's cell phone, I could get that information from it. And the cool thing with this is, as you're using it, it's saving all the answers and all the questions that the users are putting in back up to the cloud. So then you actually get an insights page, and then so you can actually see how your bot's doing. Is it answering 70% of it? Is it answering 50% of it? And then you can see those questions. So it's kind of that ever-going process that you keep making changes to make your bot better. So, and then we can also do the commercial version, which I believe is like $1,000 a month with the licensing fee, and that's where you would actually build like a professional one. The Dolphins had one on there, so I demoed that last year when this first came out, and they basically use it for all their ticketing systems, so you can actually go book tickets to a Dolphins game using the chatbot. So, and then, of course, if you have anything like sales or any of that other things, or if we're actually doing customer support, a lot of people write these bots and will host them on their site. So for instance, if we have the top 200 questions, we can code those top 200 questions that you get and then save the cost of actually having a live person answer those. And then, like I said, we can always see how we're doing and keep making changes. So those are the four platforms, or four pillars that make up the platform. So we'll take a look at the 4 integration tools across the bottom quick. We have the data connectors. So if you see up here, we have everything from SQL Server, we have Salesforce.com. There's 365 of these, and this is why using the platform is low code and it's less cost to you guys, is Microsoft has already created all these connections for you, and most of them are not premium. So if you have your standard licensing, you can use them. Like for instance, if I want to connect to SharePoint, that's a standard connector. And then the other thing is, if there isn't something in this list, like if you have an ERP or if you have a solution that's not in here, just as long as that solution has like REST APIs, we can actually go ahead and create an actual custom connector to connect in there and get your data out of there. Let it be for a report or for a custom application or anything else. So the next one is, like I said, this one's the newest ad. This was kind of the missing gap that we had before, is we had Power Apps. And Power Apps allows you to create a custom application, but that custom application is really meant for your company. So it's like you think it's on your actual Office 365 tenant subscription. This is the answer to a customer portal. So what Microsoft is doing here is they're allowing you to use that same Power App platform to create all the windows and everything you want to see. And then they're going to go ahead and they're going to host that portal for you. And then they're going to take control and allow you to pick which OAuth you want to actually use. Like for instance, so if you wanted to use Google accounts or Microsoft accounts or a Facebook account, they have all these built-in integrations where if your user has those, or if you want to create your own custom ones, then that's the way to get in. And so then, as it shows on the screen here, not only would you be able to access it from any device, once again, iOS, Android, or Windows, they also have a phone version as well too. So once again, for this, we have a lot of examples for this too. Anything from anytime people sell things, like if I'm selling seed and stuff, and if I have my customers, I can create a customer portal so then they can see, okay, I bought this many bushels of corn and it's going to be delivered at my house at this date. And so we can create pretty cool customer portals where they can come in, they only get access to their data, and then they can actually see where their stuff that they've actually purchased from you guys are at. So, and then if we flip over to AI Builder, this is kind of another cool one. Like I said, Microsoft has already done a lot of the AI work and they're continuing to spend money on it. So we keep adding to this list. I mean, right now we have 6. Some of the ones we've done before and worked with is like forms processing. So what the form processing tool will do is, like, for instance, if you get in invoices from like one of your vendors or customers today, and the invoice is always the same, instead of having somebody take that paper invoice, if you do get a paper invoice, we can actually just scan them in. And then it's got the AI logic where you can actually say, okay, here's the header of the document where I want you to take out the name and the address, and here's all the line information for all the stuff I bought, and here's where the totals are at the bottom. And just as long as we have a standard invoice from whatever vendor or customer that is, then it'll actually, all we have to do is scan it in, it'll take that data, and then we can actually store that data, let it be in SharePoint or SQL or whatever database you have. So, and one of the other ones that I've worked with too is the predictions ones. That's where if we get your guys' data in, we can start predicting things, especially in this time where we have a lot of shortages on, trying to get items in. It seems like it's everything. Where wouldn't it be kind of nice to know, I have 100 customers, wouldn't we know the top 10 that actually pay you right away? So if you're only getting in limited supply, wouldn't it be nice to give it to the people that are actually going to want to pay you? So what it does is it has prediction algorithms that are actually built into things like their sales CRM, which is Dynamics 365 Sales. And so you can use those prediction actual logic that they built in there to take your data, create that custom thing to go and spit back whatever data that you actually want out of it. So, and then the last integration tool, and this, if you look at it, is actually using the Dynamics 365 Sales. This is called Dataverse, and what this is a database that's actually hosted in the cloud. And it's a relationship database just like SQL, but it actually has things like you can actually see, it says business rules. We can set up custom business rules with your data as well. And if you can see, this is just a contacts table. And the data that's actually showing here is the data that comes with their CRM version, the Sales 365. But we can use this database to host your data if we want to do a custom app and store your data in the cloud, and then Microsoft is in charge of backing it up, making sure that it's always there for you and everything else. Or if we want to do Power BI reports and you need like a data storage or a data lake to actually put your data, because we go take it from Excel and all the other multiple places where it could be at, we can store it in Dataverse, and then once we store it in Dataverse, then we can make your reports off of this. So that in a nutshell to me is all the 8 integration tools and pillars that exist with the Power Platform. So now comes hopefully the fun part, is we're going to go ahead and demo. So what can it do for you? So if you please switch it over to my computer, I'd like to demo a few things for you guys. So first off, this is more or less if I log in on any of your guys' tenants, this is what you'll actually see. So we have our apps, which is Power Apps. We have Dataverse, which we just talked about. We have everything from our flows down here, which is Power Automate. So all the stuff is actually built in an actual web-based place. So it's easy to go out here, and then everything's in the cloud. So if we just hop over to this one, I just want to kind of give you guys some examples of stuff we've done. This is an internal one, and kind of a topic that a lot of people ask about is because we have security. So in this case, our security guy has to go out, and he's like, well, all of our, could be Microsoft, could be Apple, could be whoever, whichever the vendor is. Anytime they find a vulnerability, they have an RS feed. And so that RS feed is going to go ahead and spit out a bunch of information to us. It'll tell us like what product it is, what category it is, and then, what's the severity of it. So what we did is, instead of going out to all these different ones, in this case we have 25 different RS feeds, we have it scheduled to run every day, and we have it going by category. So we just create a variable called category. And then, as you can see here, we're just using an Excel spreadsheet, which is pretty basic. But in that Excel spreadsheet, that actually holds all the URLs to each one of those RS feeds. And then when we build up that URL, we can actually put on things like, I want to only see bugs where the severity level is more than an 8. And I only want to see these. So we can create that custom URL, store it in Excel, and then what it does is if we go into the apply each, it's going to go through, and then this is all those vendors that we're talking about. We're going to go look at Cisco, we're going to look at Citrix, we're going to go look at each one of these. And since it's automated process, it's going to go through, and it's we basically set just a time of today. And then we say, okay, if we go to that RS feed, are there anything out there that meets our criteria of what the category is and what the level of severity is? And if we find any of those in this RS feed, then we want to go ahead and we want to bring it back in. So then once we bring this back in, because more or less it's really simple, but it's just length of one. So if you go find one or if you go find 10 articles that are logged today on vulnerabilities, I want you to bring all those back to me. And then I just do a for each loop with apply to each. And what it's going to do, in this case, we're heavy Teams users. So I'm going to go take all that bodied information that I took out of that RS feed. I'm going to pull it back in, and then I'm going to actually populate it into, SharePoint is actually backing Teams. So I just call a create item for each one of those ones, let it be 1 or 10 items that come in, and then I can actually go ahead and create it. And as you can see here, it's actually creating it on my team site. So on my team site, I just have a tab that says CVE alerts for vulnerabilities. And so all he has to do is go to one Teams channel and click on it, and then he gets to see all the alerts that came in for that day. So, and once again, it didn't take that long to write, and it's ran really great for us. And like I said, it's in the cloud, so we can schedule it to run at 3 in the morning where we're not worrying about any processing or anything. And it's going to go get everything from each day and then bring it back in. So just want to give you kind of an example of what you can actually do with this stuff. Like I said, this has been a huge time saver because, literally when he first started, he was going out to 25 sites and looking to see, which, as you guys know, when you're paying somebody, as a security guy, we're saving some money by running this every day. And it runs in the cloud, so I can go see if it ever fails. I get logs telling me exactly why it failed, what it failed on, what step it failed on. So it's really easy to debug too. So the next one I want to just kind of go through is going to go ahead and try and use a bunch of those pillars and a bunch of the integration tools. So one of the other customers we have, they do financial closes on all their stuff that comes out of their ERP. So what I wanted to kind of showcase here is just a couple of the things that we can do. So this is more or less just a SharePoint list, which, most of the time you get free as part of your Office 365 tenant. And as you can see here, I don't know if you guys how many people use SharePoint, but normally if we're using SharePoint and we want to create a new item, we just kind of get this blah list here of, we can't really customize it or have it pull in and default data and stuff in it. So for this one, you can actually use Power Apps. So instead of creating an actual app, we can go ahead and take the actual form that exists in SharePoint and we can customize it. So if I click new here, I can go ahead and put logos on it. I can set default colors in the background. I can set which required fields we have. I can put asterisks on the required fields. It also has intelligent logic. Since we're using Office 365, of course, it knows that it's me that's logged in, so it's going to default things in. It's going to default my name in. It knows the time of the day, so it's going to default in what my fiscal month is, what my fiscal year is. So when you have your employees are entering in this actual data, we don't actually have to have them, enter in, the fields. We can default a lot of those fields in. So I'll just enter one here quick. If I can type. And like comments isn't, of course, required, but other ones are. And we'll just give it an amount here quick. It's kind of weird typing on my keyboard at a 45-degree angle, so bear with me. So if I go ahead and click save, and so it does have logic built in there to tell me that I didn't enter all of them. I won't bore you entering them, but so what we can do is we can use things like batch ID. So for instance, if you see these two items here, we're actually using the same batch ID. And so this is where I can go ahead and enter in one thing, or I could enter in 5 things. And this is where we're going to go ahead and, so not only have we used Power Automate to take that SharePoint form and customize it, now we're going to go ahead and use a Power Automate script. So if I come down here to Automate, I can go ahead and now you'll see that I have a journal entry approval. And so now if I kick this off, now what will happen is, and we talked about this kind of earlier before when we talked about POs, but a lot of stuff needs approvals. And this is Power Platform is awesome at doing approvals because all the user has to do is select those multiple documents, and then it's going to go ahead and it's going to kick it off in the background. And if we switch over to here, this is just a basic step, but we can do as simple as approval or as complex as approval as you guys need. So like, for instance, we could have, I need 5 approvers and everybody must approve. Or I could have the first person who responds to it as approval is good enough. Or like I said, we can throw in dollar amounts. Like I said, we can make it as simple as complex as you want. But now what happened is that flow kicked off automatically. And so if you see, I got my Teams is flashing down here. So if I go over and click on Teams, I don't know if you guys all know, but Teams actually has approvals built right into it. So if I come down here and click on my activity, you'll see that now I got a new request. And so, of course, since I'm demoing, it has my name on everything, but this is where I can actually click on this link. That link is going to automatically pull up those journal entries that were linked. So those 2 journal entries that actually had that data in there. Now I can actually go out and verify that these totals are right for everything else. And then I can come back in and enter any comments I have for my approval, and then actually click approve or reject. And you can have this do it via Teams if you're a heavy Teams user, or we can actually have it send an email out as well too. So, and then we can also do that deep linking. So that's the other thing I wanted to showcase is you can go and take your data and then bring it back based on what the user submitted. So kind of just a unique way to do approvals and trying to get you guys thinking of things we can actually do with that. So as far as time, I think I'm doing okay. So we'll go ahead and we'll go through one more. This is, once again, I just want to give you another example. This is actually a Power App that we created. This is our kind of internal one that we use a lot for demoing and purposes. But we'll just go through some of the quick stuff. Like I talked about before, the main thing is the integration. So I wanted to showcase the integration with Power, that we can take the Power App, and then not with the Power App, we can also integrate in with our Power Automate flow, and we can actually use those data connectors to talk to Office 365 and get your Outlook information. So if I log in as a dispatcher, you'll see here that it's going to pull up this other window, and I can use these filters across the top to get my tickets. But like, for instance, if I want to pick a ticket and say schedule that ticket, then it's going to go ahead and it's going to pull things like it already knows my email, it already knows my calendar. I can come in and I can say, you know, if I'm going to assign this task to myself, do I want to do it normal hours? Do I want to change it outside of my hours? And then how long do I think it's going to take for that ticket to actually do? And then I can say find available times. And then it's going to come back and it's going to pull from my calendar what those times are. So I can pick one of them and say schedule ticket. And then that's going to go ahead and fire. We get our successful warning that it's went. And now if I go back and look at my calendar, we should have that actually in there. And like I said, this would be the same email you get in Flow if you wanted to email off the last example, since we're in my calendar anyway. But yeah, so then we can easily come in and take a look and see that we need to update that website on Thursday. So it knows that integration, I don't have to write a line of code. It just exists there today. So that's the cool thing with it. So it's a reduced cost to you guys, but we can still do some pretty cool things. Now, if I log off of a dispatcher real quick, I just wanted to show you guys what we can do with Power BI is so that even the manager can get a different view with different filters and selectors across the top. But then what we can do is we can create those same Power BI reports we were kind of showing you guys before, and we can embed them directly into the app. So this is a ticketing service thing, so we could see, like Grand Forks and Fargo, where most of our tickets are happening. We can actually see our ticket volume by customer, the blue one down below. And then over here, this is where I was talking about once we have the data, we can just easily come in and filter it and say, I just want to see everything that Jason did. So then it's going to go ahead and filter it. And then once we have the data too, like we can create as many of these visualizations as you want. We can come in here and create different ones and embed all of them in the app. Or if I actually want to drill in and actually see the counting looking detail of the ticket too, I can do that as well. And once again, all the stuff's all filterable, all sliceable, where I could say, show me stuff for the last 6 months, show me stuff for the last year, show me whose SLA we aren't meeting when we're actually doing our service desk calls. So once again, I know it's one 1:40, so I'll probably stop there. But I just wanted to have this be, kind of some examples to get you guys thinking of possible ways where you could actually modernize your business. So if you want to flip me back to the PowerPoint slide, please. No. So at this point, I just want to thank everybody for coming in person and online to listen to me talk. And then we'll open it up to questions. And then I was told I had to show this one since we modernize your business that Microsoft SQL Server is at the end of its life. So at this point, I'll open up to anybody who has questions online or in the room and try and field any questions you guys have.
That you approved during the presentation cash for everybody that attended or not?
No, sorry.
No?
That sales guy's got all the cash.
Right. Any questions?
And if you guys don't have any questions too, or if you want to ask your questions individually, I don't have another session until 3, so I'll be available outside of this room if you guys want to come grab me and talk to me individually about anything I talked about today too. So.
Jason, where's the best spot, in your opinion, to get training for the Power Suite?
Okay, so good question. There's actually a ton of stuff out there. We have a lot of Microsoft VPs out there that will actually have YouTube channels and everything else. Like, it just depends on which one you want. Like, for instance, if you want to figure out Power BI, like, there's a couple guys I could give you their names for that as well. But like, if you want to like Power BI, which I had up, the last thing was Microsoft actually has a lot of the training out there because like you can actually do like Power BI in a day, where if you don't want to actually do it live with a teacher, which you can do, you can actually just download the zip file and then it walks you through all those things of this is how I attach to SQL and this is how I pull my data in and this is how I transform my data using Power Query and then this is how I create those visualizations off of the data once I've went through that ETL process. And then just like Power Apps, if you wanted to do a Power App, same thing. There's actually a Power App in the day that Microsoft puts out there, but like I said, any of the technical stuff of like, well, how, like I showcased how you could go in and get somebody's calendar and right back to that. Well, there's actually videos out there that they'll show you. This is exactly, these are the steps you need to follow to do that. So, but like I said, the first thing is if you have Office 365 already, to go out to your tenant already and just start playing with it. Because like the Power Automate licenses, they have free ones out there. They have free trials for all the stuff. Just like even with Power BI, you can just go down the Power BI desktop for free. So you can go try it out for free. So,
excellent. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Anybody else have any questions? Yep.
Thank you. I'm thinking that I would like to use this, but I've got a lot of on-prem stuff.
Yep.
Versus not.
In the cloud. Yep. Nope, doesn't matter at all. So what the one requirement you have to do is you have to install default gateway, and that's for anything from Power BI to Power App. So my Power App can talk to your on-prem SQL server, just like we can run reports for you off your on-prem SQL server. So Microsoft's got you covered there. You just have to install that gateway, and it's like maybe 9 or 10 windows to click through to set up, and then that's your secure link back to your actual on-prem data. And like I said, they have 365 connectors, depending on which data we need to access. And like I said, even if it's not covered in one of those 365, we can create a custom one just as long as your application has APIs built into it. So, yep, no problem. Anybody else have any other questions? Anything online? Oh yeah, well, I'll give you guys some back of your time, and thanks for coming and listening to my presentation. Have a great day.